Hello, everyone. Today's case is another short one, but it is just as important because there is a teenager who walked away from her foster home on Vancouver Island only to vanish and to never be seen again. 14-year-old Lindsey Jill Nicholls was born September 12th of 1978 to her mother Judy and her father Martin, who was an RCMP officer. She would go on to have a younger sister named Kim. Unfortunately, there isn't much information out there on Lindsey's life or personality, so we don't have any insight into her. What I do know is that in 1992, Lindsey's family would move from where they were living in the area of Delta, south of Vancouver, 4 hours away to Comox, a town on the southern coast of the Comox Peninsula in the Strait of Georgia on the eastern coast of Vancouver Island. And this happened after her father got transferred to a different RCMP post. But Lindsey wasn't thrilled over this move. She missed her friends and she was constantly at odds with her parents over it. A few months prior to Lindsey's disappearance, her and her father got into a heated fight over her sneaking out one night. The next morning, she pretended to go to school, but instead she packed her clothes and her teddy bear in her backpack, wrote a note to her mother, and ran away back to Delta. After this, her parents quickly discovered that when a teen runs away, there was very little that they could do to get her home. In the end, Judy struck a deal with her daughter. If Lindsey agreed to come home, she could live in temporary foster care while they all attended counseling. So Lindsey was placed in a foster family in Royston, a seaside village located across the bay from Comox. The last time Lindsey would speak to her parents was on Friday, July 30th of 1993, when she called from her foster home. Judy saying, quote, "I told her how much I loved her and that I missed her. She sounded fine, but even though it had only been a few days, she was already unhappy in the new home. And I thought, perfect, because I wanted her to come home. It never occurred to me that being out there now, she was in more danger because she was going to hitchhike into town." End quote. August 2nd was the Monday of the BC long weekend. After an argument with her foster mother, Lindsey would leave the home at around 10:30 a.m. and was last seen walking down Royston Road, east of Royston, near the 3300 block. As you can see, it's a very rural area with only a 2-lane road. Lindsey had plans to meet with friends at the annual Comox Nautical Day Festival, and she likely would have hitchhiked to get into town. Meanwhile, her parents, Judy and Martin, went away for the long weekend. When they returned home on August 3rd, Judy ended up calling the foster home so that she could speak to her daughter. However, she was informed that no one had seen her daughter since the day prior, and she was shocked to learn that despite that, no one had reported her missing. So Judy would immediately call the police upon learning this information. Now, because Lindsey had run away just 3 months prior and had threatened to do so again, police didn't initially treat her disappearance seriously, and they'd all just assumed she'd headed back to Delta and she would turn up again. But her family didn't think so, and eventually police would get on board with that and agree because, Lindsey never turned up anywhere, and no one's seen her, and she wasn't found. And so billboards would be put up to serve as a reminder that she was still missing. It was also noted that Lindsey had left all of her belongings and her treasured possessions behind in her room, and her close friends denied any knowledge of plans that she would have had to disappear. What is also known is that Lindsey did not take a jacket with her, and she would have only had about $4 to $5 in cash on her. Police would begin interviewing Lindsey's friends and doing polygraph tests on all of the people that she knew and that surrounded her so that they could begin to clear people. And as time passed with no answers, Judy and Martin would eventually divorce. In the early 2000s, a Crime Stoppers reenactment video was created to keep Lindsey's disappearance in the headlines. It was noted that year alone in BC, 18,573 children were reported missing, and 15,346 of those were recorded as runaways. That's a big, big number, and that is so scary to think about. Lindsey's white teddy bear, who she'd named Snowflake, would remain sitting on her mother's dresser at home. The same teddy bear that she had taken the first time she had ran away. And because of that, it was a reminder that she was not a runaway. She would have taken that bear with her. The first time she was said to have run away, she had taken her bear, clothing, money, and had left her mother a note saying she still loved her, but she just wanted to get away. And this time, she followed none of those patterns. Judy saying, quote, "It was one she had from when she was a small child. You would be surprised what teenage girls are attached to." End quote. In 2011, a rural property would end up being searched in the Comox Valley. However, nothing resulted from this search. It seems a second search was also done around 2016, where for 2 days, 20 forensically trained police officers conducted a thorough search and excavation on a rural property based on a tip from the public. However, it said that the results cannot be shared and that her investigation is still ongoing, although that search happened 9 years ago.
It's a torturous sentence for a mother. 23 years, still waiting, wondering.
You know, even if it's bad news, we need to know what happened to her, and the not knowing is the most difficult for sure.
14-year-old Lindsey Nicholls vanished in August 1993. She was last seen walking on Royston Road in Comox. More than 350 tips, but still no body, no suspects, no arrests in more than 2 decades. Now, a monumental break in the cold case.
Over the past 2 days, beginning on August 16, 2016, 20 forensically trained police officers conducted a thorough search and excavation on a rural property based on a tip from the public.
The results of the search shrouded in mystery. RCMP not saying if they found the teen's body or any other evidence because of the ongoing investigation. The new tip, proof that information is still alive that could help solve this case.
My hope is that somebody that was, you know, younger, in their 20s or something like that when she went missing, is now an adult, maybe has children of their own.
Courage to come forward. That's all Lindsey's family is asking for.
If people know anything at all, it might seem insignificant, please phone in and maybe the police can put all the pieces together and we can get some answers. Our family is desperate to find out what happened to Lindsey. We're really hopeful that somebody will finally come forward with that last piece of the puzzle.
For Mom Judy Peterson, the pain never goes away, even 30 years after her 14-year-old daughter, Lindsey Nicholls, disappeared near Courtenay on Vancouver Island.
Lindsey was an energetic 14-year-old. She was very artistic and very loving, and I miss her every day.
On Saturday, RCMP members joined the family in launching a new billboard campaign, trying to generate tips about what happened to Lindsey on August 2nd, 1993.
30 years, it's a really, really long time for a family not to have closure. And we continue to work towards that for Lindsey, for the family.
The 14-year-old disappeared without a trace more than 20 years ago.
Over the decades, there have been reenactments and Crime Stopper appeals.
She literally vanished.
In 2018, on the 25th anniversary of her going missing, officials launched the first set of roadside posters. To date, there have been over 400 tips, but not the one to bring Lindsey home.
The investigators that work in this office that have worked on this file have poured their hearts into investigating every tip that comes in diligently.
The family refuses to give up looking for their loved one.
It's been 30 years and I'm now 41. The first time I did this, I was 11. We've been searching for her for a lifetime.
Whoever did it is still out there. And maybe that concept will help people think back really hard and have the courage to come forward.
Anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers or the Comox RCMP.
Over the last 3 decades, police are said to have received over 400 tips, administered 15 polygraph tests, and interviewed over 100 people in connection to Lindsey's disappearance. Lindsey's file is also said to be categorized as missing foul play suspected. Judy would say, quote, "Someone out there knows something, and I'm hoping this exposure will convince them to come forward with any piece of information that could help us. We all love her so much, and not knowing is so difficult. Lindsey is my daughter, but she is also a big sister, a granddaughter, a niece, and a cousin. We all love her so much, and not knowing is so difficult. I have so much to tell her. I need to know she is safe and happy, and I need to tell her that I miss her and I love her." End quote. Over the years, Judy has rallied relentlessly for the families of missing people, and her efforts would culminate in the implementation of Lindsey's Law in 2018. Lindsey's Law would expand Canada's national DNA databank to include the DNA of missing persons across the country, and play a pivotal role in identifying unidentified remains and resolving numerous missing persons cases. Despite it being so long ago, Lindsey's case has not been forgotten. But why is there no information and no evidence as to what happened to this teenage girl? Why is this case not bigger? Why isn't there more information out there? I'm truly hoping that police have something that they're just not saying, because the question still remains, what happened to 14-year-old Lindsey? I do think the most likely scenario here is that she did try to hitchhike into town because she wasn't really in walking distance of town, and she definitely could have gotten into the car with someone with bad intentions. That is, if the foster family is ruled out, and I'm hoping police did all they could to rule them out. It makes me wonder, is she lying somewhere, marked as a Jane Doe, or in an unmarked grave, but is yet to be identified? And if she was picked up while hitchhiking, the possibilities are endless. Could it have been a predator that picked her up, or a possible serial killer? Again, we're talking about British Columbia here. Because there is such little information, the possibilities really are endless. We've seen many cases that happened back in that time frame of when this happened in the 90s, where young girls like her were picked up and held captive for long periods of time until they escaped. And it's terrifying to think that she could have been kidnapped and held captive somewhere. However, it's not like someone would have picked her up to raise her as their own. She was too old for that. And sadly, if she was picked up by a predator, just from the experience of looking at other cases, she most likely wasn't held for very long if that was what happened. But what I do know is that someone out there knows something, and whoever took Lindsey is still walking our streets and could be making other victims out there over the last 3 decades. So they need to be caught, and there needs to be justice here. So maybe if we're able to spread the word far enough, share Lindsey's picture, share her story, her face, her name, someone out there may know something, and this case may be able to be solved. So let's take one more good look at Lindsey for that exact reason. Lindsey is described as standing as slim, 5'3" tall, with green eyes and long blonde hair. She was last seen wearing blue jeans, a khaki top, and white canvas shoes. This is an age progression photo showing how Lindsey would look around the age of 18 years old, as well as a second age progression photo of how she may look at 30 years old. She would now be in her mid-40s at present time as I'm filming this video. If you have any information to provide this family closure and to get justice for Lindsey, I'll have the information down below to contact the authorities. My heart goes out to Lindsey's family, and I truly, truly hope eventually we can bring her home. It has been 3 decades too long for answers here. This is definitely a case that needs to be talked about more. It needs to be spread more. Again, I didn't know about her case until someone recommended it to me. That means there is a 14-year-old girl who has been missing for 30 years, and not everyone knows about it. And I think more people need to know. As always, comment down below if there are any other cases you want me to look into. Let me know what you think about Lindsey's case. Do you have any more information on it? Let's chat. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there. Lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.